video I wanted to talk about conducting a Type 2 malfunction clearance properly. And this is based off my experience with Type 2 malfunctions and the possibilities and everything. So first things first, why do these things happen? Well, it could be a failure of the extractor to properly hold on to the brass as it's going rearwards and hitting the ejector, or it could be a complete failure of that brass to actually hit the ejector, and the round that's in the magazine pushing up is the only force that's actually trying to get that brass out of there so it can get into the action and start going and doing what it was designed to do and go kaboom inside the chamber. So anyways, you're going to end up with something like this. So it could be low-powered ammunition, so low-powered that your slide isn't moving all the way rearwards. It could be the shooter having their thumb up against the slide. It could be your extractor, spring failing, or the hook itself is chipped. But the why in the long run is not the issue. It's how are you going to correct this and get yourself back into the fight to save your life and the life of others. Because obviously that's probably what your firearm is being used for. Or in competition, you don't want to be screwing up your times by sitting there, what is this? So this is the most stereotypical version of the stovepipe. Obviously it looks like a nice log cabin and it should have smoke poofing out. Stovepipe. So it can come in a few different varieties. It could be up like this, and it could be like this, or on the side, both ways, or it could be something that's called inline. This is the one that really throws a wrench in a lot of these people's correction method, but we'll go ahead and talk about that in a second. So there you go, and it could be reversed to where the primer area is to the front. So I've seen it pretty much all ways, but I've rarely seen an inline except for a complete failure of the extractor, which I have had on manufacturer defects and stuff like that. So with all that said, now let's go ahead and go into our process. So first things first is we're going to get a symptom, and most of the time that's just a mushy trigger, or it's an obstruction of our sights, or something we're going to see sticking out. And we'll probably see that the pistol is not into battery. So with the stereotypical version, obviously that's going to obstruct your sight picture. And this one, you may see that out of your peripherals. You may. And for the inline, it's not really going to stick out all that much, but you may get the feeling. You may feel it, not really go in. It may feel the same as like a double feed or a failure to extract or something, to where the slide didn't go through its full ka-clunk movement. So, with all that said, I'll just leave it on inline because this is the worst type, but my method for correction is something that I've never really had a problem with doing. It just kind of falls away from normal old school doctrine of guerrilla movements, and I don't believe in being a guerrilla, I believe in being a thinker. So we need to be conscious and aware of logic and common sense. And if we can't do that, then we are a liability. So with all that said, first things first is you're going to get your symptom. The second thing you need to do is immediately improve your position, whether that is seeking cover, getting back behind cover, seeking better cover, or concealment, like if you're in a house, pretty much mostly concealment, or creating distance, like if you're not really on a two-way shooting range, if it's just you having to fire them against someone wielding a machete, you probably wanting to, put some distance between you and the other person, whether that's running around a vehicle like a bunch of clowns chasing each other, like in a Looney Tune film or something, who cares, whatever. Create distance, improve your position, right? So, now, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to quickly diagnose, and all this is a quick glance to see what's going on. And that's a pretty obvious issue right there. So it doesn't take much to figure that out. You could even just do a little 45-degree angle twist while you're going back, and you can see one round's trying to go in while the other one ain't even really wanting to get out all that seriously. So now let's talk about how to correct it. Now, we're going to go ahead and go away from looking at the gun to being aware while we're physically correcting this. And this is very simple. This is a very good key that can work for all types of Type 2 malfunctions. We simply roll the gun to where the ejection port is down, and not like this, not inwards, outwards. If you're a left-handed shooter, then yes, you would do it inwards. But we basically go outwards to where the ejection port is down, and then we pull it back just enough to release the tension and let the brass fall, and then we're back in. And you should be able to get a bang if the situation arises that you need to. With all that said, very simple process. The whole point of it is you're constantly in the game and you're thinking on your feet. You're not imitating the targets that you practice on, right? So you're not standing still. You're not trying to look like an Instagram star in the middle of, the open and being the target that you practice on. So you get your symptom, you seek cover, seek a better position, and then you diagnose and work through the issue. And on a quick diagnosis, you'll be able to see if there's a round trying to go in or not, or if you're going to need a full rack or not. Again, we're using our brains. Playing chess, not checkers, as some people like to put it. But with all that said, you can do a full rack right off the bat. However, I have actually seen a full rack cause a type 3 malfunction, which is also known as a double feed. And that's not a good issue to have, and it might not even be a double feed. It could just be a jumble of brass that's trying to, mess around in the ejection port. I've seen that on instructors that try to demonstrate these things. They end up causing that because they're using live rounds. They're using one expended brass that they grab off the training ground, and then they use live rounds to try to basically rack and then go pew pew. They usually end up with a type 3 and they make an ass of themselves demonstrating it. So those touch and swipers, most of the people haven't really done it all too seriously. Me personally, I've cut myself open doing it. So it doesn't work for an inline, and it's just not something that I'm going to end up fumbling with. And you only need to get cut once to remember it, and it's just need one really good cut, right? So with all that said, let me know what you think in the comments below, and hope to see you guys in the future, and we'll talk about the type 3 malfunction.